In January of 2011, fiery suicides shattered the uneasy calm of marketplaces across the Middle East and North Africa. It all began when a desperate young businessman named Tariq Mohamad Bouazizi was ejected from the marketplace by the authorities and set off a series of revolutions that would become known as the Arab Spring.
200 million Arabs on the street protesting against the status quo. And either these people, who are the overwhelming majority, because we're talking in hundreds of millions, are included, or you're looking for trouble.
Most observers see only a fundamental battle between conservative Islamists and those who seek a more liberal and secular government, and that battle most certainly exists. But the ongoing events of the Arab Spring are driven by a much more fundamental force: the basic right of all people, long locked out of the economic and social system, to earn a living free of government corruption and repressive regulations. Locked out, the roots of the Arab Spring.
There's something called the global economy. It's creating prosperity, and Bouazizi and his like have not been included. They feel excluded. This is what it's about.
For De Soto, today's events are an echo of ancient times.
They're struggling to act on the large scale that made them great over 700 years ago.
In that golden age of Islam, the Arab Empire was organized under a single legal system of innovative business law. But as time passed and the world modernized, the ancient system failed to adapt. But other Islamic nations like Turkey did adapt, proving that Islam and free market capitalism are indeed compatible. Why then does the region remain so poor? Peruvian economist and property rights activist Hernando De Soto has come to the Middle East to find out. De Soto has spent decades investigating the economics of the developing and post-Soviet world. Now, his concern for the excluded poor has brought him to ground zero of the Arab Spring. The Middle East and North Africa comprise one of the largest Muslim regions of the world. Tunisia lies on the northern coast of Africa, just a few short miles from Italy. Its great historical sites draw travelers from all over the world. With the fall of the Ottoman Empire in 1881, Tunisia became a French colony. It gained independence in 1956, and until the present day was ruled by one-party autocrats. It is 98% Muslim. Its capital, the port city of Tunis, is home to a quarter of the nation's almost 11 million people. About 100 miles south, near the center of the country, amid dusty rural highlands and olive groves first planted by the Romans, sits the small, impoverished town of Sidi Bouzid. By all accounts, it was here, in this unassuming little square, that the Arab Spring had its roots. Here, for most of his short life, Mohamad Bouazizi worked as a fruit seller. Prevented from getting official permits to conduct his business, he, like thousands of others, was forced to work outside the law. The Bouazizi family lived here in this small house. Every morning, on his way to the market, Tariq Mohamad would roll his cart through this door. Mohamad Al-Amri was his friend.
حياته بسيطة جدا. يعرف كل خدمة. كان البرويتة والخدمة. ما عنده حد شيء.
Even as a child, he was the primary breadwinner for his family of 7.
It seems that since the age of 12, he had been buying and selling in the market, helping, keeping accounts, keeping books. What he wanted to do was do business.
هو من مازال في المدرسة في الابتدائي يمشي هو وصحيباته صغيرين زاد يمشي للمرشى خاطر حكم المرشى قريب على الدار.
Manubia Bouazizi, Mohamad Bouazizi's mother.
محمد كبر ولا يعرف ولا مخه كبير على قراية وفهم ولا لساسة ثانوي حتى للباك يخدم في طاولة أصلا ولا هو معناها الكاتب في الطاولة.
And he was basically into trying to buy fruit from the farmer, getting it to the market, and that's where he saw his specialty.
Every day, Bouazizi took his cart of fruits and vegetables to the main square in the center of Sidi Bouzid.
مرة يصور 5000 مرة 10,000 فايدة مرة ما يواتيش الحظ ما يصورش.
Out of that 5 or 10 dinars, the police demanded a bribe of 3 dinars, about $2, for the regular use of this spot. He had no formal right to be here, he didn't have a lease or a permit, and he had continuing disputes with the authorities. Omri says his stand was right here. To get his business legally registered in Sidi Bouzid with full rights to sell in the market would have taken Bouazizi 54 procedural steps over 142 8-hour days at a cost of over $3,000, more than he earned in a year. Which is why virtually no one has a registered business. Small businessmen like these are extralegal. Because of overly complicated regulations and excessive fees, these small entrepreneurs cannot afford the time, nor do they have the money to register their businesses with the government. They want to be part of the legal system. They just can't. With the vast majority of their citizens excluded from the marketplace, the countries of the Middle East and North Africa have little chance to prosper. Bouazizi always had plans for a better life for himself and his family. He wanted to get ahead.
He had a dream, which was to buy a truck, a pickup to be exact, and the purpose of that was to be able to get closer to his suppliers. He felt that if he had a truck, he could go out into the countryside, get fruit at a lower wholesale price, and have a larger margin to make profits. He was a businessman. That's all there was to him. We've tried to find something else. Make him a saint, make him a devil. There's nothing that leads one to think that he was out of the ordinary.
December 17th, 2010 dawned cold and windy. Layla Bouazizi, his sister.
مشى يخرج الصباح كما كل يوم عبى السلعة متاع الخضرة متاعه وكل شيء وتصد ربي نهارت يعني جمعة الصباح معناها هز الشريول عباه بالخضرة ومشى يخدم.
He obviously has some kind of a personal conflict with a policewoman and 2 government officials from the municipal government who want him off the streets.
يدور في البلاد في وسط البلاد وكانوا يمنعوا فيه ويعطوه برشا عديد الخطايا.
الأعوان التراتيب ضيقوا عليه ياسر وما عملوش فيه الباهي وماهوش كان هو وحده معناها هو الأكثرية مع برشا من زاد من التجار الأخرى اللي تبيع.
And they many times would go up and try and take some of the vegetables away or some of the fruit away, like as if it were a special tax. That kind of thing always bothered him enormously. But in this case, they took all his stuff away.
جاتو هذه العون التراتيب هذه منعاته يعني باش يبيع في الغادي.
What was taken away from him was what he had on his cart that day, which were crates of apples, crates of bananas, crates of pears, and scales.
هزت له معناها سلعته كل شيء جت باش تعدى الميزان حب يحمي الميزان متاعه ماك الميزان هو اصلا مش متاعه ميزان الكترونيك ماهوش متاعه.
هما قال لهم ابعدوني سيبوني خلينا نخدم على روحي راني انسان بسيط ما عنديش حتى مرض هذا رزقي هذا الليل العمل اللي قاعد نقوم به.
جا باش يحميه هي تجبد وهو يجبد كي هي جبد معناها الميزان من عندها بالقوي كي تجرحت هي عطاته معناها الكف هذيك كيف صارت الحادثة.
His merchandise was bought on credit. When he was expropriated, it meant he couldn't pay his debts, that his reputation was gone. He was ruined. He was bankrupt. That is a pretty dramatic thing. So he went and complained to what is called the governorate and asked to see the governor, and he was not received.
جاء مرتين في نفس الوقت حتى حد معناها ما بردله معناها ولا جاوبه جواب ولا أعطاه على الأقل معناها باش يحلوا باله. زيد مشى المرة الثالثة مشى للولاية كيف من وقتها معناها هو تكلي قتلوا كل غصة معناها.
He had worked his entire life to establish this single small place in the local market economy, and in a matter of minutes, it was gone.
And there's a moment where he goes out and buys lighter fluid, douses his body, his shirt with lighter fluid.
تخليه هكاك هو كل حس بالكدا ما عادش وضع حد لحياته.
Why did he do it?
When we asked if he would be politically motivated, because obviously what he did has had tremendous political consequences, his mother replied to me, "Oh, il ne regardait même pas les nouvelles," which means in French, he didn't even look at the news. He wasn't even a watcher of the news.
عندوش كان إنسان يخدم على روحه ما عندوش شي عم بها سياسة وقت هو إنسان عايش حوس على خبزته.
All he wanted was a simple permit for a permanent stand at the market. If the local officials had given him that, it would have changed his life, but they did not. And so, with his own hand, he ended his life, expressing the same profound anger and frustration felt by hundreds of millions of people across North Africa and the Middle East. His death has led to monumental strife and change. In Tunisia, demonstrations quickly led to the fall of the regime, release of political prisoners, and a newly elected government, but the turmoil continues. In Egypt, thousands of peaceful protesters poured into the streets, forced President Hosni Mubarak from power, and dissolved his ruling party. The Muslim Brotherhood won the first free elections in decades, only to have their candidate Mohamed Morsi removed by the military a year later, plunging the country into continuing conflict. Longtime dictator Muammar Gaddafi was overthrown in Libya. In Yemen, protests led to the ouster of the dictator Ali Abdullah Saleh, followed by new elections. Syria descended into chaos, destruction, and massacre. Major protests have broken out in Bahrain, Algeria, Iraq, Jordan, Kuwait, Morocco, and Sudan. Bouazizi's death has resonated with millions across the region who felt excluded from the system.
There's no other way to explain the fact that so many people came out behind him and that the first reaction of government was to put him on a postage stamp because he symbolized something.
He was an instant hero. The Tunisian government not only put his image on a postage stamp, they created a monument to him and his cart. Yet millions of people like Bouazizi remain locked out of the social and economic system.
The notion of property is there among hundreds of millions of people. That was his message. People have rights, and among those rights are economic rights.